Okay, Curtis, you want to go ahead and give us a welcome and then kick it over to Bruno to sort of frame this up?
Okay. Let me say good evening to everybody. My name is Curtis Mangrum. I'm board chair of the Arkansas Public Policy Panel. I want to welcome everybody on and certainly hoping for another large number to be on the call tonight. We're looking forward to a lot of questions, a lot of good answers. We have some very capable people here who can answer your questions. We'll be covering anything from unemployment and SNAP benefits, housing and utility assistance, a wide variety of questions we may have during these somewhat difficult times. Again, I am Curtis Mangrum. I'll be one of two moderators. The other one is Mr. Bill Cosby, who is the executive director of the Arkansas Public Policy Panel. So at this time, I believe it's Bill, you're up next.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. This call is going to be really to go over benefits that folks can apply for if they are unemployed or otherwise facing economic hardship. We have some really wonderful panelists with us tonight. We have Terry Bearden with the Arkansas Community Action Agency Association, Kevin DeLeban from the Arkansas Legal Aid, and Bruno Showers from Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families. And they are all experts in the different programs that Arkansas has to help people who are struggling financially and have a lot of great information to share. So the way we're going to structure this is Bruno's going to start and sort of just frame up the financial moment that we're in right now, and then shift to talking about the federal stimulus that's coming out, and Advocates has produced a flyer or a guide to how to qualify for that. And so I'll share that document with you in the chat, and we'll also email it out afterwards. And then after Bruno's done talking about that, we'll have a few minutes of question and answer with Bruno about the federal stimulus program. And then we'll shift over to Kevin, and Kevin's going to talk about unemployment and food stamps and other benefits that we can get. And they also have an excellent guide to all the different programs and benefits that are out there that you might apply for. And Kevin's going to talk about those for a little while. And then we'll have some question and answer just with Kevin about that for a few minutes. And then we're going to pitch over to Terry, who runs the Arkansas Community Action Agencies Association, and they have housing assistance and utility assistance and some other programs. So Terry's going to talk about that for a few minutes. Then we'll have some question and answers specifically with Terry. Those question and answers with each of them we're going to try to keep fairly short, because then we're going to try to reserve the end half of this meeting just to be question and answer and interactive with you all. And so if you have questions, please pitch them in the question and answer section on the Zoom or in the chat, and we're going to keep logging those on. We're getting messages. We're up to 50 people in, but we have people that are still having a hard time getting in. So we'll hopefully have some more people joining us. I'm going to share in the chat the link to the meeting that if any of you know people who are struggling to get in, they might be able to join that. So I'll share that in a second. And with all that, I think I'm going to pitch it over to you, Bruno. Hi, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Bill, for inviting me and putting this thing together. And to my fellow panelists, Kevin and Terry and Curtis, appreciate y'all. So I guess I'll start by sort of, as Bill said, describing the scope of the challenge, the scope of the economic issues we're having right now. Just looking at unemployment claims, initial unemployment claims over the last 4 weeks, without even considering other job losses, people that haven't successfully been able to file for unemployment, or people who don't qualify for unemployment under typical circumstances. I think Kevin will probably talk about the expansion to non-traditional groups later. But even just with that that portion of unemployment right now, we can know that we've exceeded the unemployment rate that we got in the Great Recession. Just some back of the envelope math would tell me that Arkansas is at least 15% unemployment rate, which far exceeds our Great Recession peak. And because that's sort of a floor rather than a ceiling, it could be in the 20% range. We could already be rivaling the Great Recession. Now, economists are, and I'll talk about this a little more when I start talking about the impact on the state budget, but we do expect the economic recovery will probably be a little bit faster than it was in the Great Recession. But the CBO and Goldman Sachs are projecting that unemployment rates are going to remain high at least through the end of 2021 and probably into 2022. So we're talking about a Great Recession or past Great Recession level unemployment right now, 6, 7, 8% unemployment a year out from now, which is, a real setback considering we were at around 3.5% in February. Obviously, the federal government has reacted. They've passed some legislation that we'll be discussing and sharing with you how to utilize the benefits they've passed later. The impact on the state budget's also been significant, and so the state sort of admitted that they've lost about, I would say, like $500 million in finances and revenue due to the coronavirus pandemic. And I think that's a drastic understatement to what it's really going to mean going into, as I said, I don't think they fully priced in the fact that unemployment's going to remain high for more than just a quarter. It's going to last for 4, 5, 6, 8 quarters. I think that the state revenue is going to fall much more drastically than they've currently projected. And honestly, I feel pretty confident in saying that they're going to have to come back to the table and do more than they have right now. I just don't think that the budget that they've passed is going to hold up for any amount of time, considering the scope of the challenge that we have facing us. That said, one thing that that Congress has passed to sort of help address this issue, both to stimulate the economy, to keep people buying stuff, consumption going, also to help address the human cost, the fact that unemployment's at like historic highs right now. Even people that do have jobs are seeing like hour reductions due to the pandemic. So just looking at unemployment doesn't even capture how bad this has been and how bad the economy is, how bad people are feeling it right now. They passed this economic impact payment, the $1,200 check. Briefly, for a lot of people, if you filed your taxes in 2018 or 2019 and you gave the IRS direct deposit information, you should get your check without having to worry about it, basically. If your information's current and you filed taxes in either of those 2 years, you'll get the check automatically. It'll be direct deposited. Other groups, people that don't file, but who also shouldn't have to worry about it too much, are people that are on particular kinds. So if you're on Social Security or railroad retirement benefits, and you have a direct deposit check from them regularly, it'll come through that same system. You shouldn't have to worry about it. People that do need to do something are people who didn't file in 2018 or 2019, but don't get Social Security or railroad retirement benefits. That could include certain people on military pensions, I think, for instance, aren't required to file federal taxes, but they have income, so they would need to do something. The big group would be people with income so low that they're not required to file federal taxes. Even if you have no income at all, you will qualify for this payment. The IRS has started to set up the web portal on their website so that you can give them the information to get your check. And sort of to that end, the other group of people that I'm concerned about is that if you don't have direct deposit information, if you get a paper check, if you're expecting that, some of those people might not get checks until like August or September, which really isn't helpful when we're feeling so much pain right now. So if possible, I think groups like Southern Bancorp, Bank on Arkansas are helping people with low incomes, unbanked people get bank accounts. I would really strongly encourage you to do that so that you can get the benefit as soon as possible. In fact, I did that for my mom. She's one of those people. I did that for her last week so that I could ensure that she'd get the payment. Some things I want to mention about it, though, groups that are left out, most people should qualify. There are some notable exceptions to that. And I want to talk about those a little bit, if that's okay. I think I'm on track here on time. So if non-residents who also aren't citizens, so think about people on work visas, people at H-1B or that sort of thing, they're left out of this stimulus. And to answer one of the questions in the chat that I saw about an adult dependent that files her own taxes but is claimed as a dependent on someone else's taxes, if you're claimed as someone else's dependent, you will not qualify for the $1,200. So if adult dependents, especially, this is a big issue for adults with disabilities. A lot of adult dependents are people who have, you know, challenges in that way. I wish I had a good answer for how to help those people, other than to say, like, talk to Congress, tell your senator and your congressperson that you're mad that they got left out of the first round and that they deserve to be in the next round, because they will pass more legislation. And this is also true for this next group. If not only do you need a social security number to qualify for the payment, every member of your household needs to have a social security number to qualify for the payment. So there are a lot of households out there where one of the adults is a citizen. All of the children are natural born citizens. One of the spouses doesn't have a valid social security number. And that whole family unit doesn't qualify for the $1,200 per an adult, doesn't qualify for the $500 per dependent, which is actually more restrictive than other tax credits we have. One of the elements of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expanded the child income tax credit to people. If your child has a social security number, they qualify, even if the adult doesn't have a social security number. So this is more restrictive than typical tax credits that we have on the books, which is very disappointing. It really excludes a lot of people that really need help. Hopefully I was brief enough there, Bill, and I can definitely answer any questions.
Yeah, and just so people know, I'm adding right now to the group chat the stimulus document that advocates produced that Bruno was referencing. I think I am. I'm trying to do that. So give me a second here to do that. It should be coming up. Curtis, do you have any follow-up questions, or do you see any questions from the chat that you want to lift up here to Bruno right now?
Yes, I got one, Bill.
Go for it.
Somebody asked if there was, to qualify for unemployment for the $600, do your employer have to say you was laid off directly in relationship to the coronavirus?
Bruno, you're muted still.
Oh, sorry. No. You and I think Kevin will probably talk about that a little bit more later. In fact, you can answer now, Kevin, if you'd like.
Let's go ahead, and if we could hold that, I will definitely address it when we talk about unemployment.
That sounds great.
Appreciate it, Kevin. I see some questions in the chat here I feel I can respond to.
Okay, why don't you go for it real quick?
Sure. So someone asked that if they do they need to go to the website and give them direct deposit information even though they filed taxes the last 2 years? No, unless you've changed banks and that's not the same direct deposit info you gave them before, and you want to make sure that about that, you should be fine. Someone asked about families on SSI. I think that they haven't gotten checks yet. They should get a direct deposit they should just be automatic. If they get paper checks, I don't know if Social Security still does paper checks. If they do, it'll probably be later in the year. If you filed and you never get a return but always owe, you should still get a payment. I assume, depending, you might need to go and give them to I wouldn't know. I always get money back. But if you don't need to give them your direct deposit info, then you need to give them that. There's a web portal to do that pretty easily. You'll still get the money, though.
Bruno, what about households where they have children who are citizens, but the parents, the taxpayers, are not citizens, but they have tax ID numbers?
Doesn't count. That's what I was trying to articulate earlier. That works for the child tax credit, the CTC. Normally, those children, you would get that credit. That's not true for the stimulus payment.
Okay, great. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
One more question. Did you talk about the earned income tax credit and how low-income people who work might want to just file their 2018 or 19 taxes so they can claim both the EITC as well as the stimulus payment.
Oh, yeah, so absolutely. I mean, in general, I would encourage you, if you're making an income, to file your taxes for a lot of reasons. But as Bill indicated, especially if you have dependent children, the EITC will probably give you back much more than you'll owe in federal income taxes. So on top of the fact that you'll get the stimulus payment, you'll probably want to do that for that reason.
So one bit of advice that I have is if your income is, below 200% of the poverty line, which is for a family of 4, Terry, what would that be? It's Terry, you're muted. Let me there. Say that one more time.
For a family of 4, the federal poverty line is $26,200.
So if you're a family of 4 and make below 52,000 roughly, without really thinking too hard about it, it makes sense for you to just go ahead and file your taxes for 2018 or 2019. There's lots of tax assistance that we can come back and talk about later. Mm-hmm. And that way you'll get both the federal stimulus payments as well as an income tax credit, and you'll probably qualify for a tax refund from some other sources too. So that in total could look like $6,000 or $7,000 even for a family of 4, which is not nothing. So consider that. So Kevin, let's shift gears and talk about your excellent flyer that we've shared. Y'all, I am having trouble for some reason, since we're doing this as a webinar, the chat is not allowing me to attach documents to it. So we have everybody who registered, so we will email you all the documents, and we also have a resource page that we'll give you that has all the links to all these. So we'll come back and do all that. But Kevin, I'm gonna let you take it away. You're muted. Let me Kevin, you got to unmute yourself.
I got you.
Okay.
Great, everybody. My name is Kevin DeLevon. I'm an attorney with Legal Aid of Arkansas. For those of you guys who don't know what Legal Aid does, is we are frontline service providers. We exist to provide free legal services to people who don't have a lot of money in civil legal issues. So it's everything from helping a domestic violence survivor escape a violent situation, to consumer debt collection issues, to housing, landlord-tenant problems, re-entry, and then of course what we're talking about now, which is public benefits and employment laws. Just so you know too, we've done a lot on our own Facebook page, Legal Aid of Arkansas's Facebook page. We have several videos up about various topics that we're discussing here. And we also have some videos covering some of the similar topics from previous presentations. So please feel free to check those out as well, including one in Spanish, very important. Tonight, I want to talk about ways to kind of get money in your pocket, basically as quick as possible from the social safety net. When I'm saying all this, I know, first of all, that even in the best of times, when there isn't a pandemic, public benefits can be very, very difficult to get. DHS offices are oftentimes overwhelmed. Sometimes staff isn't the most helpful. Sometimes there's all sorts of administrative hoops you have to jump through to try to get the benefits. So I know all that. What we're going to talk about is what benefits exist and how best to try to get through all of those administrative hoops. Look, the quickest way to get any kind of money in your pocket realistically now is probably SNAP benefits. For those who don't know, SNAP is food stamps. And right now, if you qualify at all, you get the maximum amount for your household size. So normally, for example, there's sometimes a single person who gets SSI who may only qualify for $16 a month in SNAP payments. Now, because of the pandemic, if you qualify, you get the maximum amount for a household of 1, which for one person is $194. So it's a significant bump. We know that's true through April. We don't yet know if that's going to last through May. But nonetheless, if you're not on SNAP benefits, it's worth applying. The first question on the application is actually, have you lost income because of COVID-19? And if you answer yes to that, of course, make sure that you can answer honestly yes. But if you answer yes to that, you qualify for something they call expedited processing, which means basically you should get your benefits within 7 calendar days. So that may be the quickest money to get money into your pocket so that you can go and at least buy food for you and your family. Now, the most helpful benefit, the most money that you might be able to get is actually through the unemployment program. This gets a little complicated. So what I'm going to talk about is what I call normal unemployment, which is the way it works all the times that we're not in a pandemic. And then I'm going to refer to special unemployment, which is a new change that just happened at the federal level that opens up unemployment benefits for people who don't qualify for what I'm calling normal unemployment. So for normal unemployment, basically you have to lose your job through no fault of your own. So if you quit voluntarily, you have to have good cause. If you got laid off or fired, it can't be for anything that your employer can say is misconduct. You have to be available for work, which means that, you know, if you were offered a job, you could actually take it. And you also have to be able to work, which generally means that you haven't been determined to be disabled. So normal unemployment is working like more or less like it always does. Some of the administrative hoops are gone now for the time being. But what you have to be able to show is, again, that you're unemployed through no fault of your own. So if it comes down to something COVID related, coronavirus related, you're going to want to be able to prove that, right? You're going to want to be able to show, okay, my employer let me go because of the coronavirus somehow. Or I wasn't able to continue working because of something related to the coronavirus. And you may end up having to prove that later. So it's important, if you get emails or text messages or anything else, keep those, because that can be important proof of what happened to help justify the unemployment. Now, routinely what we're hearing is people who've been trying to get through on the phone for 3 days with no luck. We have people who've been going to unemployment offices, having to wait all day. We know that the state says it's making efforts to hire more people and put more people on those lines. It still may not, in the short term, make it much easier. So the best advice I can give you, and I know this is easy for me to say and much harder to do, is just persist, persist, persist. You need to make that application in order to be able to get the benefits at some point. The other thing that you can do is file online. And they're trying to make it easier to give follow-up information and everything else than it would be during normal times. So that's kind of normal unemployment. Now, if you qualify for normal unemployment, the amount you get is based on your work history and how much you earn. The minimum amount you can get in Arkansas is $81. So that's the minimum.
Say that one more time, Kevin. How much?
The minimum you can get in Arkansas for normal unemployment is $81 per week.
Okay.
The maximum, for those of you who earn a fair bit of money, is $450. But, and this is a big but, because of some of these federal changes, anybody who qualifies for unemployment, even if you qualify for the minimum amount, is also going to get $600 more per week. So you'll get whatever your base amount is that you would normally get based on your wages, plus $600 per week. And so that's going to go a ways towards helping people float through and try to survive these times. So that's good to know. Now, there's a lot of people who are left out of normal unemployment. If you're self-employed, you usually don't qualify for normal unemployment. If you are a gig worker, like you drive for Uber or Lyft, you may not qualify for normal unemployment. If you're a musician or somebody who kind of does contract labor from here and there, you may not qualify for normal unemployment. And this is where special unemployment comes in, or what I'm calling special unemployment. To qualify for special unemployment, you have to have lost your job or lost hours because of something related directly to the coronavirus outbreak. Now, this is going to be the tricky part. You have to show that you're basically partially employed or not employed at all because of coronavirus. Now, there's a lot of reasons that Congress set forth in the legislation that qualify, but you got to fit into one of these boxes. So it could be that you yourself are sick. It could be that you have symptoms and are seeking a medical diagnosis from a doctor. It could be that you have to care for somebody who's sick. It could be that your child's school is closed. It could be that your place of employment is closed because of coronavirus. It could be that you're under quarantine for some reason. So there's a lot of boxes that you can potentially fit into to qualify. Now, a big word of caution is that you're going to have to prove that. And we know that in the long run, a lot of people get accused of benefits fraud when they haven't done anything wrong or when they've made a simple mistake. So I want everybody to know to go ahead and apply. Just make sure, you know, you're covering yourself. And the way to do that, again, is keep as much proof as you can of everything. So if somebody that you usually work for called you and said that, hey, we got to let you go, or we can't let you work because of the coronavirus, write down the date of the date the person called. Send a follow-up text confirming what you talked about. If somebody sends you a text or sends you an email, make sure you take a screenshot of that. Do everything you need to provide proof that shows your connection to COVID-19, because that gets really, really tricky. How much will you get if you qualify for special unemployment? The minimum amount is $133 a week, and it can be more than that based on your earnings. Minimum $133. Now, if you qualify for special unemployment, you also get that $600 a week extra. So again, if you qualify for either normal or special unemployment, you're going to get whatever you would get per week plus $600 per week. Now, a real important note is that unemployment only lasts as long as you can still as long as you qualify, right? So if you're qualifying because your child is out of school because of coronavirus, well, what day would school normally get out? End of May, early June? After that point, you aren't eligible under the same thing because you're no longer unemployed because your child's school is out of coronavirus. So now you have to be able to prove that you're still unemployed for one of the other reasons that counts. All right, a few things about unemployment. Unemployment is taxable. Both the normal and the special is taxable. That $600 that you get on top is taxable. Normal unemployment and special unemployment will count usually for other programs. So it counts as income for SNAP and for Medicaid and for our kids and other things like that. So, and here's a real big, I know this is going back and forth and whatnot. That all you need to report. The $600 that you get extra, that is not going to count against you for purposes of Medicaid or for our kids. So if you've got Medicaid, you've got our kids, you're getting your basic unemployment, plus you're getting that $600 a week. DHS needs to know that you're getting normal unemployment. They need to know that you're getting that $600 a week. The $600 a week, though, won't count against you for purposes of Medicaid or our kids. It will for SNAP. So
Kevin, I want to be clear about this because we've got a couple of questions about it. So the normal unemployment counts against everything as income, yes, basically. And what you're saying is that the extra $600 in the supplemental federal stimulus unemployment, that was a wonky way of saying it, but that does not count against you for Medicaid, but it does count against you for SNAP food stamps benefits.
Exactly. So basically, if you start getting anything from DHS, SNAP, Medicaid, WIC, T, any of the programs that DHS administers, and then you start getting unemployment, the safest thing to do is report your income to DHS. Because then what you can do, and again, keep proof that you reported it. So if you filled out a form, take a screenshot of the form. If you reported it by phone, write the date that you called, the name of the person you talked to, the time, and what they told you. Keep proof, but if you get that unemployment, report it to DHS. That's the safest way, so that you don't get caught on the backside with any kind of overpayment or any allegation that you might have committed fraud.
So one follow-up question to that is, will the stimulus checks that people are getting count against food stamps or Medicaid or any of that?
The answer there is no. The $1,200 stimulus check or the $500 for kids does not count for any federal programs as income or resources for a year.
Is it taxable income for next year? And then I'm done with it.
No, Roanoke.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So those are the two main programs to get money in your pocket. Real quick, and then I'll pass the mic. I want to touch on health insurance briefly. Medicaid, the type of Medicaid that most people who are losing work now are probably going to qualify for is something called Arkansas Works, which is where you'll get Medicaid equivalent insurance. It'll be provided by a private company called Blue Cross Blue Shield or Ambetter or Qual Choice. covers a lot of things. You can apply online. It's all in our guide too. You can apply online, over the phone, written application in person. Just be safe if you are. There's no asset or resource limits for Arkansas Works. So you can have a little bit of money in the bank and still qualify. It's just based on income, and it's based on your current income. So it doesn't matter if last month you wouldn't have qualified or 2 months ago. If you qualify now, you will qualify going forward for Medicaid. It's really important. There's some other, and the children's versions of Medicaid are called the R-Kids in the state. And again, that's based on strictly income limits. Also, if you're pregnant, you may qualify. There's various kinds of Medicaid. So if you've lost health insurance because of losing work, you can apply for Medicaid. If you make too much for Medicaid, you may be eligible. I saw one question in here in the thread a while ago. You may be eligible for what's called a special enrollment period to sign up through the marketplace, which is at healthcare.gov. Many people know it as Obamacare, where you get a federal subsidy to help make that health insurance affordable, and that's based on your income. So don't overlook health insurance. If I can just talk about for undocumented folks, people without immigration status, some of these, basically most of these benefits are not available to you. The one exception is Medicaid. There are 2 categories of Medicaid where people without status can still get some help. One is called unborn child. It means if you're pregnant, you can get Medicaid to cover certain care before you give birth, can cover birth, and can cover 60 days postpartum, even if you don't have status. The other is something called emergency Medicaid, which you have to have a serious medical emergency. It can't just be for everything. It has to be something that's like really serious and acute right now that's threatening your health and maybe your life. In those situations, people without status can get health care. The other thing is if you're affected by COVID-19 and you're looking for screening or testing, you can get that covered free of charge without regards to status. Treatment for COVID-19, though, may be another issue.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Curtis, do you have any questions for Kevin before we move on to Terry? You want to lift up? Okay, I have one more that I want to lift up, Kevin, and that is, will I be able to qualify for health insurance on the exchange with a job loss?
Yeah, well, it depends. I know, which is, everybody hates lawyers because all we ever say is it depends. So the question is really, did you have health insurance through your job? If you had health insurance through your job and you lost that health insurance, it can qualify you for what's called a special enrollment period, and you can sign up. You might have to prove that to the marketplace at healthcare.gov that you did that. But let's say you lost your job and you didn't have health insurance through your job. In that case, you may not be able to sign up. And that's because the federal marketplace, healthcare.gov, has a limited enrollment period. Usually it's like 6 weeks in November and December. And the federal government, the federal administration, has said that we're not going to open up the marketplace, healthcare.gov, to anybody who lost their job. They're not going to open it up and make it easier to sign up. So you can only sign up if you lost your job and because of the job loss, lost your health insurance. There are a few other circumstances, like you got married or a new child was born to you, but generally you have to prove that you should get a special enrollment period.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. Terry, can we shift gears to you? And Kevin and Bruno are staying on the line because we're going to come back and have more question and answer with them later. But Terry's organization, Arkansas Community Action Agencies, runs a lot of assistance for folks on housing and utility assistance and a lot of other things. So Terry, take it away.
Thanks. I appreciate being part of this webinar. I want to kind of approach this, my information, in 2 parts. One, speaking about what's available right now, which are our traditional programs, and then we'll take a look at what is coming as a result of the CARES Act within 2 or 3 weeks to our agencies. So currently, and somebody mentioned not using so many acronyms, and I realize we speak acronym all the time, so we tend to fall into that. But our foundational funding for our agencies is what's called the Community Services Block Grant, CSBG. And we use that to deliver direct services as well as to provide administrative funds so that we can offer other programs that don't necessarily come with enough money to operationalize. So currently we can serve people up to 125% of federal poverty level. So for a family of one, that's $15,950 a year, or for a family of four, that's $32,750. Some of the typical programs that our agencies offer, and it's important to recognize that every community action agency offers a different menu of services based upon local needs. They conduct needs assessments and then prioritize their spending based upon the results of those needs assessments. But some of the typical programs are employment referrals, job training, skills training. We're often the Head Start and early Head Start providers, as well as migrant and seasonal Head Start providers in your communities. We try to provide rent assistance and mortgage assistance, but to be honest, that's pretty rare that our agencies have adequate funding for that. But we also, some of our agencies have substance abuse centers. Some of our agencies build affordable housing as well as manage affordable housing complexes, apartment complexes or individual houses. And we also partner with a lot of other organizations. So our agencies should be the go-to agencies. Even if we don't provide a particular service, our agency staff should know who to refer you to if you need assistance. One of the biggest programs, and in fact the only program that all of our agencies offer, is utility assistance, which we call LIHEAP, Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. That has a different eligibility level. It's 60% of median income. So that comes out to $20,352 a year for one person, or it comes out to $39,132 a year for a family of four. That program is available right now. We are in what we call our winter crisis program. So if you have electric bills, gas bills, if you use propane and your tank is below 10%, if you use wood, and even if your utility expenses are included in your rent, you should go to your local community action agency and apply for assistance. Especially, I know many of the utility companies have declared moratoria right now in terms of shutoffs, but your account will still show that you have a past due balance and you will qualify for emergency assistance at this time. I recommend that everyone who's on this call, if you have not already received assistance since January from your local community action agency, go in and apply. Take your utility bills. Let's see what we can do, because we're getting additional money for the utility assistance program, and we are working very hard to make sure that folks get multiple bites at that apple. So we are going to try to spend down all of our winter emergency funding and open up another program for the summer, and then open up a second program for the COVID-19 response specifically. So there's potentially a couple of $1,000s in utility assistance that families can access between now and December 31st. So if you are not familiar with your local community action agency, we have a listing at our website, which I know Bill's going to send out a flyer as well, but it's acaa.org, and you can figure out who your local community action agency is. Good. Thank you, Bill. So let's see, what else did I want to speak about? Oh, when we do get the COVID CARES Act funding, all of our eligibility for our community services block grant programs will be increased by twofold. We will be allowed to serve families up to 200% of federal poverty level, which is what we've been fighting for a long time, because that will allow us to serve more moderate income families who often need assistance, but we have to turn them away. So what that means is, for a family of one, we will be able to serve anyone up to $25,520. And for a family of four, we can serve up to $52,400. So, you know, when you think about Arkansas, that's pretty much middle class in our state. That's above median income for sure. Unfortunately, our utility assistance programs are not going to see that same increase, but we will have such an influx of community services block grant funding that we're finally going to be able to do what we want to do most of the time, and that is provide rent assistance, mortgage assistance, water bill payment, additional electric and gas payments. As well, we're going to be developing some telemedicine opportunities for folks who may fall through the cracks and not have medical healthcare coverage, and specifically taking a look at helping folks deal with some of the stresses and some of the anxieties that have occurred as a result of losing jobs and facing all of this uncertainty. We're working with our agencies that have substance abuse programs and trying to really launch that on a statewide level. That'll take us a couple of months to put together. And then we're also receiving additional funding to allow our Head Start programs to operate through the summer, which is not normal. Usually they end when schools end, but we are receiving some supplemental funds that will allow our regular Head Start programs to extend through the summer. So if your child has attended Head Start, make sure that you have a conversation with your Head Start Center about how to make sure that your child remains enrolled. We are delivering hundreds of thousands of pounds of food every week across the state through our food banks and our food pantries. Reach out to your local community action agency if you need food assistance. And we are in the process of launching what is going to be called the Arkansas Diaper Bank, which will help families with infants and toddlers to receive free diapers as well. So we're very excited about the opportunity to help Arkansans recover from this, and we're going to receive this additional funding through the end of 2021. So this is going to be long-term assistance that we'll be providing, and we hope to be able to not only help people kind of mitigate the crises right now, but find their way back to the security that they were experiencing before the crisis, and to help some low-income folks attain that security that we've been trying to help them attain. Unfortunately, in the past, again, when we would just start to get folks to the point where they were stable, we would have to say, we're sorry, you now earn too much money and we can't serve you anymore. But we're going to have the flexibility to actually see folks across the finish line in the future. So please reach out to your local community action agency and see how they can help you. We really anticipate that the funding will come down in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and we're working hard to be ready to launch additional programs at that time.
What about assistance for immigrants without Social Security numbers, undocumented?
Undocumented, we, so it's a little different. For instance, for utility assistance, let's say that a family comes in and the adults in the household do not have documentation, but the children are natural born citizens. We count the income of the entire household, and then because many of our assistance programs are based upon the number of people in your household, let's say there were 3 children in the household, that benefit would be based upon those 3 children who were American citizens. But as far as community services block grant supported programs, we do not ask for documentation.
Great. Thank you, Terry. One question that I have is, are any of the community action agencies that are part of you, are you all providing tax preparation assistance? Could you help people either apply to get their stimulus, or just go ahead and file their 2018 and 2019 taxes so they get their refunds, their EITC payments, as well as their stimulus? Yes,
we have 3 or 4 agencies that provide the VITA tax preparation program. Of course, right now it's a little different because we're not able to see folks face to face, but they are working to deliver those services via email and text messages and taking photos of documentation. I wish I had thought to look up which agency specifically, but if you'll just call your local community action agency, they can let you know either whether they do it or they should know who the local provider of the VITA tax program is.
Okay, great. And can you name the counties in the state where your sites are located?
We serve, well, actually, every county in Arkansas is served by a community action agency. Our membership is comprised of 14 community action agencies. There is one agency that's headquartered in Rogers that is not a member of our association, but they still provide the same services. So all 75 counties are served by community action agencies.
Okay, great. Thank you. And
I got one last question, Bill.
Okay, go ahead, Curtis.
One grandson is autistic, and he's getting worse, and his daycare has closed. Are there anything that they can do for him?
Do you know, did that person say where they are located?
It came from an anonymous attendee. So anonymous attendee, if you let us know where, it might help Terry.
Well, I'm trying to think if I would even have, if I had that information. I really think that that's beyond the scope of community action. I think you're going to want to look for your local, the name is Human Development Corporation, which I know there's one in Conway, there's one in Springdale. So you really, I think, want to Google Human Development Corporation, and they will be more likely to be able to help you with that.
If I could chime in on that real quick, Bill, just if there's the child care kind of issue.
Yeah, please.
So if, for example, your child now has to come home if they were somewhere else, or just a regular daycare, and you can't work because of that, one, unemployment might be available to you, but there's something else before that, which is paid sick leave that came about as a result of the federal changes. So let's say you haven't lost your job, but now either you get sick or you have a child who needs to be cared for because their school or daycare is closed. You're actually entitled to 2 weeks of paid leave. Your employer has to honor it. They can ask you for notice and they can ask you for, a little bit of information about it, but they have to give you 2 weeks of paid leave. If you're taking that leave to care for somebody else, you get 2/3 of your normal pay, up to $200 a day, okay? And beyond that, let's say 2 weeks isn't enough and school or daycare is still out. If it's your child, you can get an additional 10 weeks of paid leave. 10 weeks your employer must honor, and it'll give you 2/3 of your usual income, up to $200 a day.
Yeah, thank you. I wish I had thought about that. I did see one of the questions was whether CADC was providing utility assistance, and yes, they are one of the agencies that is providing utility assistance. So you would want to go to your local office. It is very much not person to person right now. And in fact, probably your best bet will be to go online to cadc.com and complete the application there and submit it via their website, and then they will contact you to let you know what additional information they need from you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. If you have other questions about any of the things that any of our speakers have talked about, we're at the point where we're going to kind of go back and go around those. I already see one popping up, which is, I think, a pitch to you, Kevin. If my job doesn't offer paid sick leave, what do I do? They do offer paid sick leave, right?
Okay, so if your job doesn't offer paid sick leave, there's a couple things. So the first is the new federal law that provides guaranteed paid sick leave of 2 weeks. The trick to that is that it has to be coronavirus related. So if you yourself get sick and are diagnosed with coronavirus, or if you have symptoms and you're seeking a medical diagnosis, you can take time up to 2 weeks off for yourself at full pay. Now, if you're caring for somebody else because they got coronavirus or because it's a child and they're out of school and you have to stay home to care for them, you also get 2 weeks at 2/3 of your usual pay rate. And so that's kind of how that works. And then again, if your child's out of school longer, 2 weeks ain't going to cover it, right? And so in that situation, you can get up to 12 weeks of paid leave at 2/3 of your usual rate of pay. Again, that's only going to last as long as school's still in session.
And Kevin, what do you do if your employer just refuses to honor that?
Okay, well, here's the, this is where it gets into the details. So here's the trick. That paid leave law applies to anybody with less than 500 employees, right? So a lot of small businesses. But if you have fewer than 50 employees, which is a really much smaller business, those folks can get out of it with very little hassle now. The federal government has said basically if a small business with under 50 employees just sends in a bit of paperwork saying, hey, if we give paid leave, we're going out of business. They're not asking for anything more, no permission, nothing. You send that in and then you get out of the paid sick leave law. And so that's tricky. What you should do is make sure you keep proof of why you need the leave. Make sure you give your employer that, track that. So if you have emails, make sure you have a picture of the email that says, here's why I need my leave. And then keep track of any responses, take good notes. If they fire you or demote you for asserting your right to paid leave, that can be a legal violation and there can be a way to sue them about that. So that's some just kind of quick advice.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. We're getting a few more questions. The one more is, how do we obtain the federal sick leave documentation?
So I know it's so hard right now, especially because of everything going on. So talk to your doctors, and if your doctor's saying, look, you can't go to work because I think you're diagnosed with coronavirus, get them to say that if they can in a letter or in your medical records and get a copy of that sheet. If your child's school is closed, you should be able to find some email or even go to the school's website and take a screenshot of the fact where they're saying, hey, we're closed through such and such date. If it's because a family member is sick, get documentation for that family member. So you just have to just imagine later after the fact that somebody's going to try to prove that you didn't do it right. Okay, that's the thing that, especially for anybody who's new to this world of public benefits, you might think, oh yeah, I'm doing everything fine, great. I'm being honest, this will work out. No, that's the worst thing possible to think. Imagine the opposite. Imagine that somebody's going to try to come later and tell me that I wasn't qualified for these benefits. And that's what you want to do to keep proof. Don't let it scare you from getting the stuff you need to survive, but just think really extra hard and take proof of everything.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. A few more questions. The employer can require you to exhaust your annual leave as a part of the 2 weeks. Is that correct?
That is not correct.
All three of you are shaking your heads no. So I think
I'm sorry.
No. We got a hard no there. So take it away, Kevin.
No, you get that 2 weeks before you have to take any other paid leave. Period. Point blank. End of story.
Great. Thank you for that. Is the Family Medical Leave Act backlogable? I'm not sure what that means.
I like that word though.
Susan, can you add some more clarification on exactly what your question is, and we'll come back to that. Okay, Bruno, do you want to add on anything to what you were talking about with the stimulus payments and sort of where we are there?
So I guess the only other thing to talk a little bit more about the timeline. Some stimulus checks have already been deposited. They're kind of rolling them out in batches. And then after they're done with direct deposits, they're planning to roll out paper checks. I think someone asked earlier when Social Security recipients should expect their checks. I think they're still working on that. It should be in the next couple of weeks, but honestly, with a lot of this stuff, it's still up in the air, obviously. I don't have anything else to say about that. I don't know if this is the appropriate forum for it, but you know, at some point, I think we need to talk about what to expect in the next round of legislation. You know, take some of these issues we're seeing and then try and fix them next time.
Yeah, we're going to talk about sort of some of the policy implications of all this here in a couple of minutes. Terry, is there anything else you want to add on to or embellish on? Embellish is not the right word, but you know what I meant.
We're also going to attempt to help small businesses, and when I say small businesses, I mean local mom and pop shops to navigate the payroll protection loans, to help them access some of the small business supports that are out there. And we're also looking to help nonprofits like small mentoring programs. Again, you know, two folks who run a program. We're trying to help. We're going to offer technical assistance in terms of navigating some of the additional funding that is available. So feel free to reach out to me at ACA, and we will try to help you to kind of figure out how to gain access to the support that your small business needs. And I wanted to mention, just to piggyback on what Bruno was saying, right now I know that I've heard that the IRS website is having a lot of trouble and telling a lot of folks we can't figure out where your payment is, and so they have admitted that that is just basically overload, and that they're working to fix that. So I would recommend checking your bank daily, and also, you know, just keep trying back to figure out where your stimulus check is.
Great. Kevin, do you have anything else you want to jump in and add?
Sure, a few quick points if I could, please. One, Medicaid. If you are qualified, or if you have been qualified since March 18th to now, the state cannot cut you off of Medicaid unless you move out of state or ask them to, okay? If you're qualified for Medicaid from March 18th to now, they cannot, or as of March 18th, they cannot kick you off. And that's gonna last still at least another month, 2 months. So if you get kicked off, call your legal aid organization. There are a couple programs for kids or for parents with kids that we haven't talked about that may provide a little bit of money or financial resources in your pocket. One is called TEA. That means Transitional Employment Assistance. It's cash welfare. Only 10,000 people in the state get it, but if you are a parent who has, or parents who have almost no income and have kids in the home, you may be able to get it. It's like $200 a month is more or less, but it's something now. The other thing is WIC, which stands for Women, Infants, and Children. If you have a child who's 5 or under in the home, you may qualify for this. What it does is gives you, the average benefit I think is like $60 a month or something, that you can spend on certain approved foods. So milk, formula for babies or infants, some fruits and vegetables, and some other things. So those are available. You get WIC and T, you apply at DHS. The other thing is for folks on SSI or SSDI, a few things to know. If you're trying to get qualified for it, you're not, but you're disabled and trying to prove it, your case is going to go on. It may just go a little more slowly, okay? But it's going to go on. If you're already on SSI or SSDI, they're not going to try to cut you off, and they're not going to try to collect on any overpayments that you have going on right now. So a couple of things there. Third thing is in Spanish, we can do a presentation like this in Spanish. I can at least, and we can probably with getting some folks together. There's a video that we did a few weeks ago that has a lot of the same content that's already in Spanish. It's on Legal Aid's Facebook page. And just get with us afterwards if you'd like us to talk to your any group that you'd like to in Spanish. We can also do it potentially in Marshallese.
And I think we're going to do a joint one with Arkansas United to follow up in Spanish, hopefully soon. We've begun that conversation, so we'll keep everybody posted on that.
If I could add to what Kevin said about WIC, I appreciate him bringing that up. Right now, many of our grocery stores are having a hard time keeping a lot of groceries actually in stock. And so traditionally with WIC, you have to select a particular brand of the foods, and that requirement has been waived for now. You can go in, and if you qualify for a pound of sliced cheese, you qualify for a pound of sliced cheese even if it's Kraft as opposed to a store brand, whereas in the past you had to get the store brand. And I don't have that document in front of me, but that is something that recently came down because folks were not able to access the brands that they were being restricted to for WIC.
That's great information. Thank you. A couple of things I want to follow up with here for a second. One is I'm going to share screen here in just a second and show you a website that Megan on our staff has created where a lot of these resources are. And it is arpanel.org. And I put this in the comments or in the chat room. And if you go there, we have a lot of the documentation. I tried to paste them into the chat, and it, for some reason, we do this as a webinar versus a regular Zoom meeting, it won't let us attach documents to the chat, which is annoying. But let me just show you this website for a second if I can. Let's see if I do this successfully. Are you looking at a web page from the Arkansas Public Policy Panel right now? Okay, super. So I'm just gonna, so if again, the website is arpanel.org/crisis. Hopefully this is the only crisis we're gonna have to deal with for a while. We didn't label it as a COVID crisis, so let's not have any more. It starts with some news updates about the crisis that we're trying to keep up current. Then it has information from Terry's organization on where you can find the community action agencies in Arkansas and their contact information. Then it has the information from Kevin and Legal Aid of Arkansas about the guide to benefits and those 7 tips to help. I know one question in the comment thread was, where do I start for applying for unemployment? These tips are really good ones to follow for that. And if you click on that document, Kevin's organization did a great job of making a 2-page version of this. That's the high-level things you need to know, and then a longer version of the document that gets a lot more into details. So if you just click on that document there, it's all there, and you can, of course, go directly to legal aid. And then there's this document here, which is the one that Bruno was talking about on how to receive the economic impact payment. And the one thing that's not on the advocates flyer that I think I just want to keep repeating is that if you have modest income, you can also just file your taxes for 2018 and 2019, probably get the stimulus payment and also get an earned income tax credit or a tax refund as well. Then we have some, I know another question we had during the call was what were some services available for mental health, and turns out Megan's already posted some things on our site about that. And then there's some information about meal sites and a map of where you can find them in Arkansas. So that's that site. I'm going to stop sharing now and go back to all of us. And so I want to just encourage you to check that out. If you know of other resources, please let us know. You can email us at panel@arpanel.org and let us know what else you think should be on there. A couple things that I just want to highlight as we close out. One is I want to thank our panelists. They all did a great job. And so Kevin and Bruno and Terry, thank you very much, especially in times of this, that we need your all's expertise and your passion for what you all do. So thank you. Our membership at the Arkansas Public Policy Panel and our companion sister organization, the Citizens First Congress, is made up of advocacy and community organizations from all over the state. And we are now working through our issue caucuses to sort of develop COVID emergency response agendas around the different caucuses that we have. And those are civil rights, economic justice, education, election reform, environment, and public health. And there's really giant COVID related consequences to all of those issues. If you're interested in getting involved in those conversations to talk about like what Bruno was saying earlier, not only how do we qualify for what is, but to advocate for what should be and make sure that folks are being taken care of right now who are in crisis. Please consider joining us for some of those conversations. And again, if you're not a member of the Citizens First Congress, just send us an email at panel@arpanel.org, and we'll follow up with some information about how you can plug in to that. The other thing I wanted to do is I'm going to share a quick poll with you right now that has which of these issues you're the most concerned about and which ones you'd like us to do follow-ups on. So you can now hopefully take that poll live on your computer or your phone. And we're going to be planning to do some follow-ups to this. I know we had a lot of people tonight who had trouble getting on. And so we're going to be, this video is on our Facebook page, and we're also going to be sharing it on our websites. So you'll be able to go back and review it if you missed something, or if you have no other friends that'd like to respond to this. We're also going to do follow-up. So if you all are particularly interested in getting more information about specifically walk me through how do I apply for unemployment or food stamps, we can do some follow-up sessions. All of our panelists have agreed to do some follow-up things with us like that. So let us know on this document. The other thing that just to share with you is we're going to be doing some follow-up webinars like this, probably on a weekly basis, to dive. There's giant issues happening all over the state on what's happening with our education system. We've been working a lot with the Hunger Relief Alliance about what's happening with feeding programs shutting down in certain parts of the state when people need them the most, and making sure that school feeding programs are still active and viable. So we're going to do follow-up ones around education, around economic policy, around some racial equity issues that this whole thing is lifting up. So stay tuned to our Facebook page, our website, our email listservs, and we'll get information out on all those things. And with that, Curtis, I think I'm going to turn this over to you, and we're going to end an hour-and-a-half long session a little early, which is a rare for me, but it's a special treat. So thank you all very much one last time.
Hey, I just want to give a big, big thank you to our panelists tonight. They did an outstanding job, very much informative, and I'm sure you guys spread out a lot of good information out there. We want to thank you so much. Appreciate you, and we look forward to being able to do it again.
Curtis, I just got a message from Kevin that he has a question for Bruno. So is that a public question, Kevin?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Bruno, you're on the spot.
Okay, it's a real quick thing. I've heard that in some states, because school meals are a big thing, right? And now school meals, you can't get food. I've heard in some states that they've done some sort of replacement school meal program where people can get some money or something else so that they can kind of replace school meals. Bruno, do you know anything about that and what its chances are in Arkansas?
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to look it up real quick right here so that I could answer this question, Kevin. What my understanding of the status right now, I believe we applied for that actually. So I think basically the way it works is that using some categorical eligibility based on if you would qualify for school nutrition programs, families can get certain like SNAP benefits to replace the meals that they would have gotten in school. I think there might be some administrative rule regulation issues that we're working through in Arkansas, but I think we're trying to do it. That's my understanding as of a couple days ago.
And I can add just a smidge to that from talking with the folks at the Hunger Relief Alliance who've been working on this. The way I understand the program is that for people who qualify for free and reduced lunch in their school, it would simply add an additional bonus onto their WIC cards. So they don't have to rely on this, because one of the challenges we're having is feeding programs who are having volunteers or staff get sick with COVID, they're having to shut the whole thing down. And the easiest way of responding to that would just be to simply to give Bruno's family a supplemental extra on their food stamps already, so that they can take care of that themselves. What the Hunger Relief Alliance, again, they're not here, and so I'm remembering a conversation, so take this for, but they are advocating for that, but apparently it faces some significant hurdles still. And so this may be a thing that needs to become a part of our advocacy agenda moving ahead. I think one of the issues that we're definitely going to have a follow-up webinar hopefully on with the Hunger Relief Alliance is feeding and hunger issues in Arkansas, because this is definitely, again, one of the challenges with any crisis is they expose all the cracks in our safety net. And right now there's a lot of them that that are super exposed. So we'll have a follow-up about that.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, Curtis, you want to give us a short blessing and send us on our ways?
Certainly, again, we thank everybody. We appreciate all the hard work you guys put in to make this happen. We just thankful. Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for allowing us here, and thank you for this time. We pray your blessing upon each and every one. Pray your blessing upon our state. All is going on in all things. We give you honor and praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you again to everybody, and we appreciate you, and stay safe out there.
Yep. Take care, y'all.
Okay,
Take
bye-bye.
care, everybody. Have a good one.